Hello, everybody. I am so grateful that you're here with us today, and we are going to get into something that I think is probably, Taffi, the most requested subject that people are asking, for years, is this issue of relationships, especially in the marriage. And a lot of times people get married and they have no idea how this is supposed to go. And we prepare for everything else in life. I mean, a plumber goes to school to learn how to do his job. A lawyer and a doctor, they spend time learning how to do their job. But not very many people spend time learning how to live together, learning how to build communication, build relationship. And in this day and time, Tab, people are asking, why are you in it? Are you in it for the relationship? Or is it a transactional type of thing that's going on here? So there are lots of things that are happening in this area of marriage, and we are going to spend some time talking to you about some of the things to watch out for and how to handle things. And specifically today, we're going to be looking at something Taff and I call the fear dance, and how you need to be aware of that, because you may be doing something and you might not even be aware of it. I wasn't aware of it. And we want you to know that we're going to be vulnerable, because I think that vulnerability is a weapon. And it can also be something, and it's a weapon, and what I mean by that, it's a weapon against a lie or the stuff you tell yourself and believe. Vulnerability may be one of the #1 ministry tools in the world right now. And so we want to be vulnerable. We're not coming to you like we're some perfect experts on marriage and relationships, but we've learned some things, and there's some things that we understand. So I am going to ask my beautiful wife let's start this conversation. Let's rock and roll with this thing. Let's really give people what they need on a practical level to experience an amazing relationship together.
That sounds good. And really, I want our viewers to understand that this is something that we really had to work through.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's something that even to this day, because those patterns of fear will come back and creep back without us even recognizing it, particularly based on how we were raised or what we thought was normal, when we really recognize now it was all fear and rooted in fear. Afraid to be disrespected, afraid to submit, afraid that your kids are going to turn out wrong, afraid that I'm not measuring up, afraid that I'm not going to be loved in the way that I want to be loved. All these things create a cycle that can in turn trigger fear in your partner. And we've seen that, and we're so excited about sharing this today. And hopefully we'll get into some of the solutions at the end to be able to get out of that dance and create a different rhythm.
Yeah, and part of that dance, from a man's perspective, is that this man is dealing with inferiority, just feeling like he's not enough, feeling like he just comes short of everything. And he uses superiority to cover up his inferiority. And he literally takes a cover and puts it over his inferiority, and he produces an identity that's fake. He's producing a false identity, and he spends his life afraid that he's going to be discovered by his wife. And one of the things we recognize is how dominant fear was in our lives and in our marriage. We didn't call it fear, but it was dominating the decisions we made with one another, our children, our finances, everything. And then you have to be careful later on about dealing with competition within that marriage. So let's get started with this. And you mentioned cycle.
It is.
Because that's insanity too. Somebody can continue to do the same thing expecting different results, and that's the cycle that most marriages are in. They're doing the same thing, expecting different results, and they're not understanding what a fear dance is. So let's start there. How would you define this fear dance?
Oh my goodness. I think it's something that I can even tell a story because I remember we had gotten home from church one night. It was a Bible study night, and we were up in our bedroom, and you had said, "Can you hang up my suit?" You said it very nice. And to me, for whatever reason, I've read so much into it, thinking that you were trying to take advantage of me by asking me to hang up your suit. And that was when you wore suits on Wednesday nights to Bible study. And the Spirit of the Lord said, "What are you so afraid of?" And I had to be honest that I didn't want to be taken advantage of. And I recognize that those are some of the things as a child, maybe when you see certain things your parents go through and you say, "Oh, that'll never happen to me. I'll never let my spouse do that to me or feel as if I'm being taken advantage of." And so I think it's those things that we are insecure, like you mentioned, or areas that we're not whole in. And as a result, thank God that Jesus can come in and fill those voids. But we have to be intentional about recognizing internally what's going on with us. Because it's not so much, why are we angry, or why am I hurt, or why can I stop doing this? It's like, you might want to ask yourself, what are you afraid of?
Yeah, because for a man, it's like the fear of being disrespected, because that adds to his insecurity. And that he may read into a situation and read it as disrespect, just like you were talking about reading this from a perspective of, I'm afraid I'm going to be taken advantage of. And there's just a whole lot working here. And so what happens in a marriage where, you know, one person does something to hurt you, okay, and then you do something to hurt them, and you're both doing it out of a place of not being aware of the string that was attached to your past, something that happened in a situation that you said will never happen to me, and that's fear-based. And what you're saying is, I'm afraid that this is going to happen to me.
Right.
So I'm going to build a wall or a defense, because a wall is something that's used to keep certain things out. And if you're not aware of it, it's like this fear dance. You hurt me, I hurt you, then we never make any progress.
Never make
Because
it.
we're taking
going
the
in
same
circles.
steps. Yeah, you're going in circles to do that. And so I think people have got to have some courage to take a look at and to confront boldly,
To be honest.
to be very honest with yourself, that this happened to me and I really never got over it. I just got covered it up, and I produced an identity that I wanted you to see, but it wasn't real. And the crash takes place because you got two people wearing a cover, creating fake identities, okay? And then one day, the cover's just not enough to keep it under wraps. And and there's an explosion that takes place, and now everybody's forced to deal with the truth, the fact that I'm insecure, the fact that I am inferior, and you now have to deal with those things. And if you don't deal with it, it will deal with you.
Absolutely.
And it's more than just a marriage, Taffi. It's knowing how to relate, because I guarantee you, in some way, shape, or form, you are releasing some of that in other relationships that you have.
It's true.
Raising your children, friends, all that kind of stuff, even your relationship with God. So it's just not really good to cover up, because you don't reach authentic intimacy when you do that. See, even most couples have fake intimacy. Come in to me and see. We really never get to genuine intimacy. And you want to have sex. How you want to have sex? And I don't even trust you. I have problems with you. And so it's not real intimacy. it's sex. And there's a difference between real intimacy with the covers off and having sex. What do you think about some of that?
I mean, that's spot on because I think also back to some of the things that you shared about just recognizing the significant needs, the needs that we all have that we're born with that should be filled. And when those needs aren't met, then we go about in a sense of being wounded. And there's a wound there that needs to be healed, wanting to be seen, wanting to be heard, not being ignored, um, not being, treated a certain kind of way. Because I remember just the struggle with submission, just thinking that it would be at a disadvantage, even though I knew the scripture talked about how submitting yourselves, but at the same time, I saw blind submission where it was based on the law, it was based on gender, it was based out of fear, motivation. And so those things are so detrimental um, to a relationship because it just magnifies the pointing of the finger,
Yeah.
the fault finding in each other. And as a result, you're just going down a dead end street. And so I think it's vital for us to recognize the place that grace has in a relationship and to try to get away from that rhythm of fear and get into the rhythm of God's grace. And then we can start seeing each other and helping each other and healing each other. And that was some of the things that we were able to do with each other and recognize, and just like you were talking about, being vulnerable, the things that you dealt with.
And that's hard, being vulnerable.
With your spouse.
Yeah, I'm talking about, being vulnerable with your spouse with the fear that they could use my vulnerability to hurt me, especially if you got an unresolved issue in the past. You would think that that would be the first person you will be vulnerable with. But if you're struggling with inferiority and you're talking about being vulnerable, I'm not going to want to be vulnerable when I'm inferior right now. The last thing I want is for that vulnerability to be violated, which now makes me even more inferior, feeling devalued, feeling like I don't measure up. There we go again. But some of the stuff you're saying, if we're not careful, we will start building a foundation for living the lie. And you'll start saying, well, I would rather lie to you about you because it gives me peace than for me to confront certain things that I'm having problems with because I know I'm going to lose my peace. So for the sake of not having an argument, I'll just, for peace sake, lie to you. And I remember saying to you, I said, I am tired of lying. And you were like, what are you talking about? I said, I consider it a lie when I am doing things to preserve your emotions and feelings while I feel like I'm about to explode because I won't be honest. And that's what the fear dance does. I can't be honest with you because I'm not sure how you're going to respond. And so on my part, it was so frustrated. I'm so frustrated over the situation. Now, when I present it, it comes out the wrong way. And so many couples end up in that position.
And then I would shut down.
And then you would shut down.
So here's the fear dance. Yes.
There's that dance.
Or I get quiet,
yeah.
or I would, want to give you the silent treatment.
Yeah. And so I'm frustrated, you're quiet. We don't get across the bridge. We're doing a fear dance. And the thing that was so eye-opening in our relationship was, I just couldn't believe that much fear lurked around our relationship. And when you speak of things like this and you begin to see how, we both realize that a wall is built for protection, and it's also built to keep certain things out. And my heart in these teachings that you're going to be doing, and the guests that you're going to have, is that people really take the time to examine their relationships from the perspective of real people with real situations and real circumstances, and how we can confront the story we tell ourselves to finally say, I believe the story I tell myself, but it's not true. It's not real. Like, I believe the story. I remember when it's a while back, the kids were real small. And I remember going to the kids and I said, you know, I know y'all think I'm the greatest dad in the world. And they paused and said, well, and I was shocked. Like, what? Well, Dad, such and so, such and so. And it was an eye opener to me that sometimes you see yourself from a perspective that others may not see you from that perspective. A husband may see himself from the perspective of he's a great husband, but the wife's like, I'm miserable. I cannot stand what we're doing. I don't like what you do. I don't like how you talk to me. I don't like how you treat me. And the whole time, he's told himself the story that, yeah, you're happy. You're this, and I think that's sad, because he's gonna live the rest of his life thinking that he was this great husband, when in fact, the wife was still in a bunch of fear. The fear of, are you gonna leave me one day? Am I gonna be 70 years old and got to figure out how to take care of myself? These things are real. And now we live in a society where marriage is not really something that's exalted or pursued.
Right,
Yeah.
or esteemed
Yeah.
like it should be.
Yeah, because that's fear-based.
And it's part of the last days. He
Yeah.
says forbidding people will not want to marry.
Yeah.
And we're living in these times. But I think if we can get to a place like we're talking about today of getting whole and really being honest about the things that maybe are triggers for us, or the areas of our life that we are dealing with, and to take it before God and just ask God to be honest and tell you about yourself before anybody else has to. Go and do your own work. These are the things that we both were able to help each other and help the marriage, in the sense of it being an institution, to be better. Because if not, then we would just continue to be in that same pattern. But now I don't have to be passive aggressive. I can renounce defensiveness. It's like, okay, I don't have to be petty, tit for tat. It's like, okay, I can acknowledge what's going on and the emotions that are going on the inside.
One of the greatest days of my life, and if you're going through a fear dance or being challenged in your marriage, you have to be willing to do the work. And I'm talking about as individuals. A lot of times we go in, we want marriage counseling together, and it's not the unit that's the problem as much as it is the individual pieces of that unit that need to deal with maybe some area where you were raised differently and you need to confront that issue, or something happened to you, you need to confront that issue. So, Taffi and I are pastors, and we're followers of Jesus Christ, and yet we believe that we believe in counseling, and I mean, you're looking at two former therapists, and we believe that you need to go somewhere so somebody can kind of help you to really see some things that you're not really looking at. I learned so much. I learned so much, and that part of me, the approval addiction, the grieving over what used to be in ministry and life, and it was not there anymore. And all of these things will affect how you communicate. It will affect your intimacy. It will affect all those kind of things when you begin to look at it. But I say this because I need men to understand you need to do the work. You don't need to depend on your wife to do. You need to do the work. You need to go get somebody you can talk to. And when you go get somebody to talk to, You need to be a good patient. You need to open up and tell them the truth. You need to, don't go in there lying because, again, the insecurity puts you in a position where you are afraid to look at you. You need to look in the mirror. I did this. I looked in the mirror and I said, you are a fear-filled, insecure man that's been covered up by covers all of these years. And if you don't deal with that, it is going to deal with you. And I know a lot of men that just feel like I'd rather keep the cover on than to actually go and do the work. And I had to sit there, and me and that guy, that counselor, we talked about all kinds of stuff. And while I was doing that, you remember me, I remember it when I was 8 years old, I was in the middle of a shootout. My father was a policeman, and he didn't have a car at the time, so he would pick me up by foot from my grandmother's house and walk me home. And in the middle of that, he saw somebody breaking in one of our neighbor's house, and he told me to get close to the curb and don't move until he comes and gets me. And bullets are going over my head. And I didn't even realize I was traumatized from that situation there. And the trauma of that one incident said to me, nobody's ever going to hurt you again. And so there's a defense mechanism that's up. You're not going to hurt me. You're not going to hurt me. My wife's not going to hurt me. People are not going to hurt me. And I didn't even know that that came from a traumatic situation that took place. And it came out while I was ready to become vulnerable and open with somebody. And man, you got to be willing to do that.
The enemy, he says the same thing that I can relate with your story, because it was the fear of feeling as if I was protected in the same way that you were. And you know the story when I was 5 and felt like someone was breaking in my room and someone was outside of my window, and this man, my dad, came into the room with a gun and all this. It was like this big thing.
Because you actually saw the person.
Right. Yeah. And the funny thing is, your fear of not being protected was the same fear that I had, where I didn't feel protected as a kid, and went into adulthood and marriage with that same thought, and would trigger each other in so many ways. And so I just was thinking about that. Of course, we're almost out of time now, but yeah.
Are we? That was quick. What? I need another hour. I just got started. That was the foundation. We didn't get into the thing. And that's why you don't need to miss not 1 minute. We're going to use our lives as a living epistle to begin to walk you through some practical, real life situations that you may or may not be able to relate with. But if you can, I'm believing that Taffi is doing this because we want to see if we can win some. You know what I'm saying? Not
Right.
everybody,
So important.
but to win some. So I think they're telling me time's up. We probably need to wrap it up. So I enjoyed it. Have me back.
Thank you for spending time with us today. If this message resonated with you, I encourage you to share it with someone, some couple, your spouse, someone that you care about, because I believe that these tools are available. You can go to our website and you can share it and help others grow together. Remember that we were made with love and to love, and not to live in fear. Until next time, remember that Jesus is Lord, and in all of your getting, get understanding.